Did you know that Ally McGraw left her husband Robert Evans to run off with Steve McQueen and that they ended up having a turbulent marriage that ended in divorce in 1978? When Ally McGraw left a powerful studio marriage behind to be with Steve McQueen, the world called it the ultimate love affair. But behind the fame, the motorcycles, and the headlines was a marriage shaped by control, jealousy, and emotional turmoil few ever saw. Now, decades later, McGraw is finally opening the door on what that life really cost her, and why the man everyone adored became the relationship she barely survived. The King of Cool, and the love that burned everything down. At the height of the 1960s counterculture, Steve McQueen wasn't just a movie star, he was a symbol. With his anti-hero swagger, clipped dialogue, and magnetic defiance, he embodied everything audiences wanted from Hollywood's new rebel era. By the late 1960s, McQueen had become one of the biggest box office draws in the world, and in 1974, he was officially the highest-paid actor on the planet. His performances in The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, The Cincinnati Kid, and The Towering Inferno cemented his legend, while his Oscar nomination for The Sand Pebbles proved he was more than just cool. He was formidable. Off-screen, McQueen was notoriously combative, clashing with directors and producers who tried to control him, but his popularity made him untouchable. Studios tolerated his volatility because audiences adored him. That same intensity, however, followed him home, and it would profoundly alter the life of the woman who fell hardest for him. Ally McGraw was already a rising star when McQueen entered her life. Best remembered for her heartbreaking role as Jenny in Love Story, McGraw had achieved overnight fame and become the face of a new kind of Hollywood heroine, soft-spoken, vulnerable, and emotionally raw. At the time, she was married to powerful producer Robert Evans, a union that placed her at the center of Hollywood's elite. Everything changed in 1971 when McQueen and McGraw met on the set of The Getaway. What began as professional chemistry quickly exploded into a full-scale affair. McGraw was instantly captivated, and McQueen, equally drawn in, became her escape from a life that suddenly felt controlled and scripted. She left Evans, moved in with McQueen, and in 1973 married him, igniting one of the most talked-about romances of the decade. For a brief moment, it felt intoxicating, passionate, unrestrained. But the same fire that drew them together soon scorched everything around them. The marriage grew volatile, marked by control, jealousy, and emotional upheaval. McGraw's career stalled as McQueen's dominance and insecurity took hold, slowly isolating her from Hollywood and from herself. By 1977, the relationship had collapsed, and the couple quietly went their separate ways. The divorce was finalized in 1978. Just a year later, tragedy followed. McQueen was diagnosed with pleural mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer often linked to asbestos exposure. On November 7, 1980, after surgery to remove multiple metastasized tumors, he suffered a fatal heart attack. He was only 50 years old. In the years since, McGraw has spoken candidly about the love that upended her life, acknowledging both the intensity of what they shared and the pain it left behind. The man the world worshipped as the King of Cool was, to her, a complicated and deeply damaging partner. And while their romance made headlines, its aftermath reshaped her forever. Ally describes their relationship as chemical. In later years, Ally McGraw found the language to explain what she and Steve McQueen really were together. In a 2018 conversation with People, she described their bond as chemical, something almost physical in its intensity. McQueen, she said, had a presence so powerful that when he entered a room, everyone felt it instantly. Men, women, even children would react without knowing why. She was no different. His magnetism was undeniable, overwhelming at times, and impossible to ignore. But that attraction always came with an edge. MacGraw admitted that even when she was deeply drawn to him, there was a sense of danger beneath the surface. She recognized the bad boy energy that so many others romanticized, an undercurrent that made him thrilling but unpredictable. Loving McQueen was never calm or steady. It was charged, volatile, and constantly on the brink of something shifting. A year earlier, in a separate interview with The Times, MacGraw reflected on how their marriage began like a dream and unraveled just as quickly. In the early days, they lived tucked away in a secluded Malibu home, far from Hollywood's formalities. Life there felt suspended from reality. Long days spent on the beach, casual barbecues, beer always within reach, cannabis freely passed around. They lived loosely, intensely, as if time itself had slowed to match their moods. Despite having legendary neighbors like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, they rarely moved in elite circles. Their world revolved inward, insulated by the ocean and the illusion of freedom. Looking back, MacGraw expressed gratitude that this chapter happened before the age of smartphones, before every private moment could be captured and shared instantly. The paparazzi were present, but predictable. At least then, privacy still existed in fragments. McQueen's dark side reared its ugly head. As time passed, the darker side of Steve McQueen slowly emerged, something Ally MacGraw had not fully understood when she first fell for him. In the beginning, she saw a man who felt principled, original, and fiercely alive. What she didn't yet see were the unresolved wounds he carried from childhood. McQueen's father had abandoned the family when he was still a baby, and at 14, his mother sent him away to a reform boarding school for troubled boys. Those early experiences shaped him in lasting ways, planting a deep mistrust, especially toward women, that would follow him into adulthood. MacGraw would eventually pay the price for that mistrust. Looking back, she later recognized warning signs she had ignored. One of the clearest was McQueen's insistence on a prenuptial agreement. At the time, she was too deeply infatuated to question what it revealed about his need for control and emotional distance. Love, for her, blurred judgment. Another red flag appeared even before the marriage began. McQueen demanded that she stop working. Instead of pushing back or protecting the career she had worked so hard to build, MacGraw gave in. She stayed home, prioritizing family life over professional momentum. Before long, the confinement began to weigh on her. The independence that once defined her slipped away, replaced by a growing sense of isolation. McQueen's jealousy soon became impossible to ignore. He would erupt with anger if he caught her so much as glancing at another man, even as his own attention wandered freely. The imbalance poisoned their marriage. Tension replaced passion, and what once felt electric became volatile. By 1977, the relationship had collapsed under its own weight. They separated that year and finalized their divorce in 1978. When McQueen was diagnosed with cancer and died in 1980, MacGraw was devastated. Despite everything, the control, the jealousy, the heartbreak, she had loved him deeply. Throughout their marriage, she had lived with the constant fear that he might leave her. What she never imagined was that he would leave the world altogether at just 50 years old. In the aftermath, MacGraw unraveled. With multiple failed marriages behind her and an acting career that had stalled, she slipped into a profound depression. Alcohol became a way to dull the pain. Eventually, she sought help at the Betty Ford Clinic, openly confronting her struggle with alcoholism. Therapy helped her reclaim control, and in 1994, she made a decisive break from Hollywood, relocating to Santa Fe, New Mexico, in search of a quieter, more grounded life. That new chapter allowed her to rebuild. She wrote an autobiography, Moving Pictures, which became a bestseller and helped her process years of emotional turmoil. For a long time, she admitted, she lived in the past, replaying what might have been. But gradually, her focus shifted forward. She found peace in painting, gardening, meditation, and yoga. She devoted herself to animal welfare and allowed herself the possibility of companionship again, without pressure or illusion. Although acting no longer held the same pull, MacGraw briefly returned to the stage in 2016, reuniting with her love story co-star Ryan O'Neal for a touring production of Love Letters. The two maintained a warm, enduring bond, finding comfort in shared history rather than unresolved longing. Ali MacGraw on losing Steve McQueen. In a later interview with People, MacGraw described her connection with McQueen as chemical. She recalled that he had an overwhelming presence, someone who could enter a room and instantly command attention from anyone around him. She was no exception. His appeal, she said, was undeniable, but it was never uncomplicated. Alongside the attraction was an edge, a sense of danger, a bad boy quality that was both thrilling and unsettling. Their relationship lasted 5 intense years before ending in 1977, just 3 years before McQueen died of cancer. Looking back, MacGraw reflected with honesty rather than bitterness. She wished they had both found sobriety earlier and grown old together, acknowledging that their time was marked by extremes, days of deep joy and days of profound pain. She has always been clear that she does not see herself as a victim. The relationship, she said, contained moments that were truly wonderful alongside others that were deeply damaging. After struggling with alcoholism, MacGraw has now been sober for more than 3 decades. In 1994, she stepped away from Hollywood entirely, choosing a quieter, more grounded life in Santa Fe, New Mexico. In recent years, she has shifted her creative energy toward more meaningful pursuits, including collaborating on a clothing line with Ibu, a fashion collective that supports female artisans around the world. Today, MacGraw speaks with a sense of peace she once lacked. She admits she spent years rewriting the past and imagining alternate futures, but no longer lives that way. Instead, she focuses on being fully present, grateful, and engaged with life as it is, feeling, by her own measure, deeply blessed. Ali MacGraw's pre-fame first marriage. Ali MacGraw began her career as a model in the 1960s before making her acting debut in the 1969 film Goodbye, Columbus. Before fame found her, she married her college boyfriend, banker Robin Hohen, in 1960. The marriage was short-lived, ending in divorce 2 years later. Hohen passed away in 2016 at the age of 79. In 1969, MacGraw married legendary producer Robert Evans, forming one of Hollywood's most talked-about power couples of the early 1970s. Evans, a major force at Paramount behind films like Rosemary's Baby, The Godfather, and Chinatown, cast MacGraw as the lead in Love Story, a role that turned her into a global star. The couple had a son, Joshua, who later became an actor and director. During their marriage, Evans encouraged MacGraw to star opposite Steve McQueen in The Getaway. The on-set romance that followed ended her marriage to Evans, with their divorce finalized in 1973. Despite the turmoil, MacGraw and Evans remained close. Evans later said that of all his marriages, his relationship with her meant the most. She stood by him publicly until his death in 2019, honoring both their shared past and his lasting legacy in film. Did Ali MacGraw date Ryan O'Neal? The on-screen chemistry between Ali MacGraw and Ryan O'Neal in Love Story was so convincing that many viewers assumed it must have carried over into real life. In truth, it never did. The romance existed only on camera, but the bond between the two actors was genuine and enduring. Because the film became such a cultural phenomenon, MacGraw and O'Neal were permanently linked in the public imagination, and over the years they often spoke about the deep connection they shared as collaborators and friends, not lovers. After O'Neal's death at age 82 in 2023, MacGraw reflected on that bond with warmth and clarity. Working with Ryan, all those years ago, was one of the great experiences of my film career. and we remained friends ever after. He was a skilled actor, charming and funny too, she said. The words captured how their relationship had matured over decades, rooted not in romance, but in respect, affection, and shared history. Following her divorce from Steve McQueen, MacGraw never remarried. Although she was briefly linked to fellow actors like Warren Beatty and Peter Weller, she eventually stepped away from romantic entanglements altogether. Looking back without bitterness, she once said, "I married some wonderful men, acknowledging love without clinging to its outcomes." Since retiring from acting, she has embraced a quieter, more intentional life, settling in New Mexico and focusing on peace rather than partnership. "I have wonderful people in my life, and I feel incredibly blessed," she has said of her present-day world. At a love story reunion in 2010, MacGraw offered rare self-reflection about why her marriages failed. "I'm on my own now, but I was an atrocious partner," she admitted. "Most importantly, I never told anybody who I was. I wanted them to read my mind about what I wanted instead of taking a chance." The honesty marked a shift from the romantic myths that once surrounded her public image. Even the film's most famous line, "Love means never having to say you're sorry," has taken on a different meaning for her with time. MacGraw has openly said the line never made sense to her, and during the reunion, she offered her own definition of love instead. "There are so many kinds of love, and they're all very intense for me. I've had to learn that there's friendship love, there's ex-lover's love, there's ex-husband's love, there's kid love, your animals. Love is enormous." Long after the turmoil of her 1970s marriages, MacGraw appears to have found something far steadier than romance: acceptance. In choosing singlehood, she didn't retreat from love. She expanded it. And in doing so, she arrived at a philosophy far richer than the fairy tale ending audiences once expected.